Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the BrandFathers. This week, we've got a special week. Here generally on the BrandFathers, we have all worked in marketing. We are creators. We are talking about branding and marketing regularly. We want to help you get better. We also want to practice what we preach, and there are two opposing ideas that we're always holding together. The details matter to those who matter, and done is better than perfect. So when we started this podcast, we put this thing together. We knew we weren't going to have it all together. And so as you may have paid attention, we have some struggling brand identity. It is all over the place. It is killing my two design fellows here. Painful, in fact, each week. But for all of us. So today, we're going to do a design and portfolio review. We have put out an open call to you, our listeners, our supporters. We have a bunch of portfolios that we have earmarked. We had a lot of people submit designs, proposals, pricing, timelines. We are going to review the creative today, and we're going to help you build out what makes a good portfolio if you were trying to source a designer or brand design, and we're going to help walk you through this in real time together, seeing some of the things that we factor. So, without further ado, let's jump in, gentlemen.
I will say, we've hit rock bottom. Every day I talk to an art director or designer who goes, how can you participate in this podcast economy with that brand identity? Have you considered potentially just bowing out or some sort of ritual, sort of Japanese ritual suicide? Not to condone anything like that. I would never actually, engage in that or condone it. But this is the kind of conversation that designers have with you when you are a prominent figure in the aesthetic community. And so today I'm happy to work with you two together to solve this problem.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get into it. And where we will start here is we will start with a brief, because hiring a designer, hiring any creative agency starts with a good brief. And this isn't the best brief in the world, but this is likely a better brief than most will get. So we'll kind of walk you through some of the elements here. So for context, we have all of our media channels. So we have our YouTube, we have our Spotify, we have socials, and our brand is going to live across all of these touch points. So with our brief, it is just a simple document where we talk about some background of the show and who we are and what the ethos and take and tone of the show is. We outline a goal here which says, hey, we need a visual identity that reflects the BrandFathers as the pseudo-religious order. So we're coming in with a perspective already here as to how we want this brand to come to life. And a lot of this derives from who the three of us are, the kind of like fun that we have on this podcast, the name BrandFathers, and then we've just had a bunch of ideas of various ways that we can kind of bring this to life. So we're like, hey, we're going for this pseudo-religious cult-like vibe where serious but also a little bit irreverent. So that is the goal that is going to drive all of the deliverables and visual identity for the brand.
I do want to say too, just to hop in there, having a concept is the key. I talk about this a lot where teams how do we start creative direction? How do we start art direction? How do we turn from a brand to an art directed brand? And it's it takes one idea. Every single thing you do, your next photo shoot, your next campaign, your brand identity have one concept. So for us, just being a mysterious order, or having that is purely is one thing that will basically make this interesting no matter how you cut it.
Yes, and I would just add, so many people, if you are not watching right now, you'll see there is a overview, then a goal, and then deliverables. And one of the first deliverables is logo mark. So many people make the mistake of just starting with a logo. I cannot tell you how many people reach out to me and go, I need a logo for my brand. And it's so if you just send that to a designer or ask for someone and you don't give them any context, the idea, a good brief here is trying to give as much information as possible while not overwhelming your design counterparts, but having a point of view while allowing them some creative freedom as well. So I love that you have these two up front. This was super key and a good brief.
Yeah, so the most important part here is the second part, right? Which is we start with logo mark, but then it's the application across social. So you don't just want to see the logo mark in isolation. It's a question of how does this live? And, in our case, it's as a YouTube header banner, as a Twitter header, as a graphic with all three of us in there, as social media lockups, as kind of text lockups. So we need to see this across all of these applications. And so if you're to take a step back and you're saying, hey, well, I'm not designing a podcast or a media company, I'm designing designing a physical brand. I'm designing like a new ready to drink sparkling water. Great. Then the application that you need to be thinking about is, how does that brand live on a can? How does it live in a case pack of 6 or 12? How does it live on a shelf? How does it live in like POS merchandising? Not just what does that logo look like in a vacuum on, a colored square.
Yeah,
so we list out all of our kind of applications here. And then we give some sense of what we think a visual identity could look like here. Now, between Oren, Jordan, and I, we all have a fairly strong sense of design and how we want this to come to life. So we've given them some inspiration, both in our language here of some ideas of kind of colors and illustrations and iconography that we're looking for. We also give visual reference. And the visual reference here is important because a lot of designers can look at this and say, hey, I really like what they're trying to go for here. And I think this is very much something in my style. It's something that I'm interested in executing on. And the more kind of tangible that you can make the outputs of your design or the kind of visual motifs and mood boards of what you're looking for, the higher likelihood that you're going to set them up for success and find the right partner here.
And so some quick notes on what we mentioned there in that deliverables list and things like that is that what I've noticed in doing, I don't know, hundreds of these like over time is that that list of exact things is super crucial. And then the difference between those actual things being good and being bad happens a lot in this bottom half of the brief, right? So you'll say, hey, cool, I want a 9x16 promo graphic, I want a YouTube header, I want all these things. Spelling that out is super crucial, or you end up with a logo mark, and then you have to figure out how to go apply it. But also, people will just go throw, like a mediocre designer and a good designer difference is someone will just go throw that logo over a banner or on a colored background or with a pattern and call it a day. When all of those graphics actually have to be engaging in their own way. They need to be like their own little works of art. And the more you actually break into the tone of voice, into the ideas and the things you have there, the more you give designers a toolkit to actually be excited about doing that in an interesting way.
No doubt. And for those of you who aren't watching, this is on a simple Notion doc. A lot of this, is being put together through 3 creators who have separate businesses and families and are all over the place. And so, you can collaboratively work through something like this. You can do it in Google Sheets. You can do it in a Word doc. I generally like to start there, and then you can build these out into a presentation if you want. But you can really get the nuts and bolts through simple written word and a couple of image references.
Yes.
We're 7 minutes in. Let's look at some portfolios.
All right. Let's go.
Okay, so we will start off with Jin Williams, a multidisciplinary designer and country music enthusiast living in Portland, Oregon. Oren, noted country music enthusiast. I feel like this has his vote already.
Yeah, actually, I was going to say, Ashwin, where do you land on the Zach Bryant, Brianna chicken fry drama? As a noted country?
No, I just sit over in Noah land, so I'm out of that one.
Yeah, I like early font and color design. Maybe it's because I lived in Portland, Oregon here, but yeah, Jen, off to a good start.
So we'll click into, each one of these as a case study in and of itself. I see some unique differences in typography. It looks like they have some motion design as well as some photography going on. So one thing that I do like here, if we go back to multidisciplinary designer, this is someone who is spanning not just brand identity work, but photography as well as some motion design. So it's cool to see someone who can work across all of these media. There can be good and bad things here, but someone who is like a holistic designer like this can kind of work with you in the long run over a lot of things. And especially as we are kind of working across a number of formats, this can be helpful. So if we take a look at one of their projects here, one of their case studies, we see all of these assets, and all of these assets look great. And sometimes you'll look at a portfolio where it'll just be images. And you look at the images and you realize, hey, this was one person who was working with a much larger team, and maybe they just did the copywriting, but all of the visuals here kind of suggest that this person did the work. So what I like to see at the top of portfolios is exactly what the person or the agency was responsible for. So in this case, Jin was responsible for brand identity, creative direction, logo design, social media design, copywriting. Everything here is something that they outputted, which is great because then you can kind of get a true sense of holistically how they think about this work.
And I will say, if you are more like a junior creative and you're trying to put your portfolio together and you're only working on one component of this, I wouldn't be afraid to put stuff in your portfolio. Just very obviously call it out at the top. Be like,
Yes.
I did the copywriting. I did the junior art direction supporting a senior art director, which means I did location sourcing, picking models, getting the shot list acquired. Like, just call out what you worked on, and it will allow you to use a lot more in your portfolio.
So, totally agree, and I see this a lot with people, whether it's a marketing portfolio, design, photography. It's like just call out what you did at the top. Sometimes there's sensitivity on putting those bigger projects because they're like, oh, I don't want to imply that I shot a whole commercial or something, but it's okay to put it in there. Just call it out. And to your point, Ashwin, and if you do all of it, then yeah, put it all at the top as well, so we know.
So people are going to check it. Like, we will go check with Homebrew that this person did it, right? Like, and so overclaiming has as much of a negative as not. This is great.
Indeed.
I love this.
Yeah. This is great. I love their illustration work. I've seen that in a couple of projects now. They have some kind of social media applications. From what I get a sense, they have like a good sense of how color kind of like systems work together. They've chosen some nice typefaces for this. So overall, I like the work here. So
And one thing I want to call out as well that I'm always looking for is like, I want to find someone who loves to do the style that we are looking for. So there are like, you can learn this in tough places where you go, oh, this person is an incredible designer, but they like, I don't know, modern and clean, and we're looking for gothic and textured.
I want them to take that
gritty.
same photos in the church with us and in we need the artistic vision to come to exactly.
Wow.
Anytime
maybe this is our person.
In art direction, it's our person.
Maybe the portfolio review is over right here.
It is over, indeed.
Look at this. I mean, they read the brief and updated the portfolio.
How many times have you watched Conclave? Yeah.
All right, well done, Jen.
Okay, so let's hop into the next one. We are looking at Micah. And one of the things that strikes me here, I think, some of these, you can't click into them. So it's, you just kind of have to assume that, hey, maybe this is a graphic that this person made. Other ones you can click into. And then again, here they explain, hey, I worked on this project. I kind of did all of these pieces. So it's cool to kind of see how all these elements come to life. One of the things that stood out to me as I was looking at this is the illustration style and the work here is totally different than the work here. And Jordan, as much as you said you like to find a designer who's like really good at executing in the style that you're looking for, what I look at when I look at designers is not necessarily do they have just like one specific style, because I think styles need to match briefs, but are they capable of executing across a breadth of styles and doing so well? Because then they really strike me as a versatile and competent designer.
And also looking at this, like, this is a lot of Hawaii themed stuff. I grew up in Hawaii, and I can tell you only get a certain type of work if you're really focused on Hawaii, and so that also gives you some context as to like, okay, there's like J-Boog covers next to this like California style next to whatever is like, they have a really versatile style, and this is kind of the only projects they probably get like based there. And so you also kind of understand what world they've been put in, right? Same thing with kind of Portland based projects. You'll start to see this is a little different than someone who's working in like more tech based design. And so you can start to think about, do they have potential to go kind of beyond where they are? But I love a lot of the illustrations and stuff in here, and a bit of how this is presented. It's a fun portfolio.
Yeah, it's fun.
We get some of our
design is going to be useful for when we do the BrandFathers on wax.
Absolutely. BrandFathers wax poetic.
Boiler Room, sponsored by Canva, sponsored by Adobe, whatever.
I was going to say, if you scroll up to the top one there, Ashwin, when I first looked at this one, that top right one looks like I could have done it in Adobe Express. It's not far off from our current logo. So, we do need to see the evolution.
Yes, absolutely. But overall, yes, like the kind of styles.
Nice work, Micah.
Now, this is an interesting one. I think this will open up a conversation. So, so this, we got some BrandFathers work already done. So people are submitting their portfolios. This person, has some marks here, how the logo and monogram comes together, color swatches, motifs, slate. I mean, fairly
look at this.
Depth.
Look at the fathers right there in their crests.
Crestfather.
So we have
this is fun.
We have some of this here, and We also, someone tweeted at us and said, "Hey, I did an hour-long exercise putting together some iconography and some initial brand impressions for the BrandFathers,
Chris, shout out
uh,
Chris.
which was a,
Wow.
a pretty interesting and kind of cool exercise to do within an hour." I'm curious to hear both of your opinions on this kind of like spec work, because with neither of these people, I think, two important call outs here. We did not ask for anyone to do any work. We don't believe in like unpaid work, but they did this. And so what is your take on this?
Jordan, go ahead.
Okay. As someone who did a lot of free work, I'm totally down with the like new empowerment. And we didn't ask, as Ashwin said, we didn't ask that. I always am very clear, like when I'm hiring for things. I think you're automatically going to get an advantage, though. It like depends on your hunger and your desire for a project, and only do as much as you're going to be willing to. If it doesn't work out, that you say, okay, that's cool. The time was worth it. And so, to me, you will automatically have a leg up. We are like, oh wow, look at that. You can see our faces in this. You can see it in context. Human beings, and so often in creative, you need to be able to see something to start to react to. So often people don't actually know what they want. Sometimes I think we're probably a little more evolved in that, but they don't know what they want until they get to see examples of maybe what they don't want or what they do. And so this gives you that opportunity to strike a light bulb and to get that. So Source 4 here, great job on this. It's super fun. You can see a lot of opportunity. And then Chris Hume as well. Those are great and fun things.
Couple notes on this. To Jordan's point, you start to see yourself in the work, right? Like, so I love this here. I'm already starting to think about, we could just put this symbol here. We could do that there. We could be done. Same thing with when Chris posted that on Twitter, I looked at some of the thumbnails. I'm like, you know what? This is like, if we just swap some of the fonts, this is actually 2 degrees from a thumbnail that could work. And then you're in your head, you're basically just saving the time. You're like, we don't have to go do this 6-week process and have what comes back. We could just start tweaking right now. And I feel like for a lot of people, that is actually like a kind of massive advantage to close. And then like on that spec work thing, especially in this time, like if you enjoy doing this kind of stuff, you're building your portfolio, you're doing whatever. The worst case scenario is like that person built something out that's going to make for an amazing social media carousel or a really fun video to showcase their work in the future, right? Like this is content with a multiple purpose. And I will say, like, I'm biased towards some spec stuff because like I had one of the biggest jobs that I've ever interviewed for. It came down to, I was interviewing for a director of marketing position. It came down to me and someone from a legendary agency with a big background who was a lot older than me. And I was like, man, how am I ever going to win this one? I think like I'm a better cultural fit. I think I'd be better at this job, but like they have this much more experience. And so I literally did like a 90-day plan for the company of like what we would do for marketing, like exactly, and when we'd accomplish it by week, and like sent that in. I spent probably 8-10 hours on it, and got that job though. And then they were like, cool, can you just implement the plan? And then to me, that always turned the switch in my head of like, all right, like they could have taken that and run with it, right? That's what everyone's fear is, they're just going to take my idea. But also, most companies who are good people to first place, you'd actually want to work for, are going to be like, oh no, I just like this traction. Let's run with it,
Yeah, I mean, I also like, I'm very biased on this. Like, I did a portfolio in my early days to get my job at Nike. I made a 3-minute short film with film students. Like, took a long time to do these things, and it was a huge risk. But I realized that I was competing against people that were going to have better resumes than me, and I needed to swing for the fences. And so, if that's you, I do think spec work can totally pay off for you, and these are great examples.
Let me give, so I think I'm in line generally with your opinions on spec work, but let me give a kind of counter to this of, the argument against doing this, which is, I think between the three of us, we can look at this work and we say, hey, there are elements here that are not totally right, but we know that, hey, they have like good design capabilities. We have good design capabilities. We can like iterate on this to get it feeling good. I think this could backfire with, if there's 3 different guys here, and they see something like this, and maybe for example, like this pattern completely puts them off. They're just like disgusted by this kind of like halo around us. That could very easily like put someone in this no camp of not wanting to work with you because they're like, oh, that's the kind of like work that they do, without realizing, hey, this is actually like an iterative process. And if we actually gave them more feedback earlier on, they might not have gone this direction. So there are, I think, I think it kind of has to be evaluated with like who you're working with, what is like the potential upside, what's the potential downside, how much time have you sunk? If you don't get the project, can you then use that spec work to show off other work? But I think especially here, this person noted in the application that they haven't done much like logo mark and brand identity work. They've done other mixed media work. So they wanted to just start by doing stuff here because their portfolio didn't reflect the breadth of work that they could do for our project. So I think in some instances, it totally makes a lot of sense.
All right, what we got coming
Guys,
up next?
You'll never guess. I literally just had someone who said, I need your help to build my aesthetic for my podcast and video podcast. Your pod looks perfect, and sent a link to our thing. Anyway, I realized he's actually talking about my video setup, not the pod. But I was like, no way, I'm literally right now doing a rebrand podcast. But yes.
Ooh, Jonathan, Jordan.
All right.
Is it Jonathan,
Jonathan
or is it Jordan? Or is it Jonathan Jordan? It seems like
amazing
it's
either way.
Jonathan Jordan Wilcox.
Oh, there we go.
JJW. Legend in the streets.
Can you zoom a little?
Yeah.
Yeah, all good. There we go. Okay, so this is a PDF that was uploaded to Google Drive. Also, totally cool. We asked for links.
Which let me actually say here, I don't think I have highlighted any portfolios today that do this, but some agencies and freelancers get really almost too creative and too avant-garde with their website design that it's almost impossible to use and understand what it is that they do. They're not kind of clear about the work. It's hard to click around. It's hard to get a sense of what they did on the project. So honestly, I love a good PDF where right here, every single one, he's just like, here's what I did. I did a documentary. This is what I did on it. Here are the assets. Really easy to scroll. No kind of questions about it. So I like when things are kind of straightforward to navigate and understand.
I agree. This is cool. I like the color. I like all the color differentiation to show different projects.
Yeah, like this project here feels totally different than this project, which feels fairly different from this project. So I like the breadth of it. I also like, one of these was a documentary, one was a lifestyle brand, one was a magazine, one seems to be some merch. So kind of like has run the gamut across a variety of media and a variety of designs. So again, I think this is great. No notes.
I thought the same thing. I noticed like the breadth, and then also doesn't feel like Jonathan is like trying to do too much. Like there's something about his design that is a little understated, but like confident and good. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, this one I wanted to pull up because first I obviously saw the black letter font here, and this person, they designed this font, which is a tough exercise, and
AJ,
I appreciate that.
DeMarco. AJ looks like
a woodcut. They do this on a Gutenberg. What do we? Yeah,
They did it on
Fire.
Gutenberg.
Yeah.
To the source.
Just a lithographer through and through.
Love this. I love the perp. I mean, I'm very
Yeah, I was gonna say this is like
speaking my
Jordan
language.
Just woke up in a cold sweat looking at this font.
Totally deep purple with this like gothic black and gray. I mean, the
Yeah,
gothic.
if we get like a
font,
Roman statue head over here, Jordan might feel over. Yeah.
I might fall over.
Love
This
the
is
Philippines.
incredible.
Crucifixion fixation. What's up with our graphic design submissions really being all about crucifixion? This is like a recurring theme. Is this one person also from Portland? Is there like a more leaning religious issue?
AJ looks like he's done a ton of work for Nike, Jordan Brand,
For Nike.
so Adidas.
This
Looks like
is the bigger.
yeah.
Jordan, is there a insidious Portland, like crusade type cult infiltrating graphic designers across the Pacific Northwest?
Could be. You never know. There are those underground catacombs from the sailors back.
Maybe
in
they read
historical
Job
days.
differently than I did. Anyway, all right. Sorry.
Yes.
Ecclesiastes? Anyone? All right.
Also, yeah, I don't know if you guys saw, but a whale swallowed a kayaker last week, kind of like Jonah.
Talk about
Anyway,
biblical.
Indeed, biblical meets TikTok. This is so cool.
This was a book design that they did that I thought was awesome.
Yes, AJ's work is super cool. I'm reading. It said he was an art director for Ogilvy. Entrepreneur now. Does his own brand, like super cool. So
Yeah.
AJ, I think the opportunity, and some of the fun for us would be kind of building in real time with some of these people, so if people are more interested in that, it could be fun. But done a lot of work, and it looks
Yeah, good portfolio.
Yeah,
great.
it's great.
Cool.
So what I haven't seen yet, I'm interested to see when we actually go through, is people that have had real social applications for this, like YouTube thumbnails or like actual social media video overlays or any of that. We have not seen that come through so far, which is fine. We can teach into that, but an interesting note.
Yes.
Outside of Chris Hume, who did the spec work, right?
Yeah, just outside of the spec work, which was actually like literally for exactly what we're asking for. Man's read the brief.
Yep.
This one I thought was cool because it's an industrial designer. It's very unlikely that we're going to be hiring an industrial designer, but I'm like deep in reading about how they're redesigning train cars. And again, I like the ease of following this through PDF. They also have some brand identity work here. They talk about their logo process, kind of like color palette. I think how all of this came together is great. Sharing their process, some of the art direction. But what I think is interesting when we talk about kind of like multidisciplinary designers. Now, if we were building a mobile app or a website, for example, just the kind of like thought process that they have gone through from the industrial design standpoint of doing research, understanding what the user problems are, rapidly prototyping and getting feedback, that process is invaluable when you are designing wireframes for a site, what a user experience and flow should look like. So I actually think there's a lot of crossover there. So I wouldn't, if we were building, again, an app here, I wouldn't totally rule someone like this out, especially as they have extended into some digital work. But I just thought it was cool. And it was a portfolio that we have not seen.
I agreed. I enjoyed going through this, even though it was like, I don't think that's what we're looking for.
Yeah,
It's just completely different. So it's
very
always nice to
different.
see.
Yeah.
Just very cool work. We have over here, this is a very well-known kind of larger branding agency. They've worked on some great brands here. And I think this is a nice site that balances, again, I think this is probably more for an agency side. I think this is a nice site that balances work, but makes the work look good, but also balances usability.
They submitted to this, or are you just bringing this up as an example?
They submitted to this.
Sick.
Yeah. And they had a cool offer, which I think was, donating the proceeds to LA fire victims, because they are LA.
I was going to say, is this the one that came in at 190K, or no? I'm just joking.
No, these guys do.
Let's go.
They do fun work. I also think what I also like about them for being an agency that has worked with some great brands and some very well-known brands, they have pretty robust case studies. As you can see, this is just like one brand, and it's not just visuals. They intersperse it with text talking about their process. Now, a lot of brands, and it's like we've done this at my agency too, where like sometimes we'll write up these case studies. It takes a lot of time putting all these assets together, doing the motion design, and it's like, who's really reading this? But where it pays off is when a client comes in and says, hey, do you have examples of, brand work that you've done, or digital work that you've done, or copywriting work that you've done? Just being able to send them 4 links to case studies that will then convert them is so great. So it is an effort to put all these assets together, but when done well, it can really like help drive a sale for you.
Oren, didn't you do a video on this brand, this cookie brand that they're highlighting?
At one point. Extremely expensive cookie brand. Tastes great. Different model than the enemies over at, not the enemies, but that one brand, Crumble.
Crumble, yeah. This is
actually, I don't know if that was me. That might have been one of my clones. But I had talked about it.
Yeah, this work is incredible.
Yeah, their work
cool.
is great. Their work is great.
Oshi,
sushi. That the last crumb, that cookie stuff was really good.
And so, what are the benefits? If we us as a group, where would we consider going with a big agency versus going freelancer on this? Like, obviously, we're doing a podcast. It's kind of overkill to go get this full level identity, but also, we get more professional work. What are y'all thoughts on whether we should kind of pursue someone like this, who obviously is like best in class, or work with some of the people that we've seen portfolios from so far?
I thought about this early on, whether I should go to like some agency friends and do it. I think that there's a case to be made that big agencies, not all the time, but a lot of the time, they struggle to kind of cut through on social, to highlight their own work, to really understand the depths and nuances of social media sometimes. And so I think that it could be mutually beneficial if we worked with a bigger agency to kind of highlight some of the projects that they're working on. I think there could be an ongoing relationship. I think that would be a mutually beneficial type thing where you have this kind of new age, us creating things oftentimes on our iPhones and in our own studios, and a larger agency, and all of us have interacted with them as well. So I do think there could be a nice complementary relationship.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. Obviously, like the quality of the work output is great. Like, I mean, I even love this project.
Yeah, it is good. Very faithful.
So I think what you end up getting is you'll probably end up getting applications across more assets or deliverables than you ask for. You probably get outputs like a brand book. You probably get a little bit more in terms of, motion design or like the breadth of exploration than you might get from just working with an individual. So, there can be upside to it, but I think most likely we're probably going to skew, smaller, working with like an individual or a couple of people.
We had a bunch of agencies that like know us, being like, hey, we'll happily do this. Let's talk and let's do the X and Y. But I think we are, as fathers of the people, interested on highlighting some of these like younger up and coming designers.
Exactly.
This is great work. Not gonna lie,
it's so good.
Great work.
Yeah,
Shouts
Truffle. Truffle.
Look,
based out of LA.
if the Corn Dogs print ad doesn't sell you,
Nothing will.
Dude, I mean, this flower shop, Christina's Shoreditch. I'm like, this is incredible.
Good stuff. The
This is beautiful.
The new pentagram.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the last portfolio that I just want to hire here, because this was just something that stood out to me that wasn't in any other portfolio, is on one of these on one of their brand projects, the designer here just uploaded a loom, which was her presentation to the company on the brand design. And
I love that.
It's not loading here, but it's like this 20-minute presentation. And, I probably watched half of this, and I also looked through the assets themselves. And when I was looking through the assets, it's like, okay, cool. This is like, visually striking.
Wow.
There's definitely like parts of this that I totally like. I like seeing it in some of the applications. There's like maybe parts that I don't fully like. And this is one of the challenging things with kind of brand identity and design work. It's really easy to just kind of like get a gut check, like statement on this of like, hey, do I like this or do I dislike this? Maybe it doesn't speak to some of like my personal design. But when I watched the video of them talking about the design process and why they made certain decisions, you see the kind of thoughtfulness behind it. And I think that is like a really important factor to be able to kind of assess for, is like how thoughtful and like iterative and exploratory are they with their design process? How do they think through all the applications and like extensibility of the brand? And so she just kind of repurposed an asset that she already had, which I think is great.
Scroll down a little bit more
work.
to go through this one. Not on the loom, just on the page.
Is there more to see on this page?
Yeah, we'll just kind of just go on that. Yeah, even that. Just the martial. Look, I honestly think this is my favorite of the ones that we've looked at so far. Mainly because you see social application, whether it's perfect or not. Mm-hmm. You see like merchandise application. It kind of jumps off the screen. Obviously, like the pins, coasters scenario here is like an actual good digital application. To me, this is someone who knows how to get attention on the internet. And that's something I feel like we didn't quite have. Like, we had a lot of gorgeous ID on a lot of the other ones, but this has like that. Like, I'm always just looking for that intangible, right? Like, okay, like where are the vibes? And this is the first one where it's like this is out of the box. Both in the way they presented that you just broke down, and then also kind of what we see here being like, all right, this is unique.
They also have a tab down there at the bottom left, if you look, Ashwin, on creators and creative services branding.
Oh, look at that. I don't even
And
know
there's
on in here.
Check out Morgan Eckroth, the work they did there. I was just scrolling through that one, and it looks really good. I do like how they have a YouTube and a video that accompanies every one of these projects.
Oh, wow.
It's just interesting.
Yes, but this is the first portfolio of, and we've only cherry picked 8 here of like 100 that got sent to us, but this is the first one that like is this is on the, like, they are pitching the things that we are asking for, right? Like they are in the portfolio, which I find interesting. And it's also interesting to note that, like, look, none of these designers are cheap, right? They're all like pretty well paid, but this is obviously a niche that people could be working in, is like, hey, this social related content, this other, and like putting packages together. And it's interesting to see that, like, basically it's been her portfolio that has a bunch of that and not much else.
Yeah, it's good work, and I mean the site is great too. I mean, if nothing else, this is just amazing. Y'all, anyway, you can't overinvest in your brand and in your web presence. To be honest, you just can't, you know?
This has been brought to you by Squarespace.
You know, I think to Oren's last point, something to call out, and this is probably more for designers, but I think also when you're hiring kind of like brand groups too. You know, there's this one agency called King and Partners, and they do brand identity work, and they really do it for kind of like luxe, hospitality, lifestyle, and real estate brands. I mean, they've done
Skims, Blue Bottle,
but they do a lot of hotels. They do a lot of like luxury hotel groups, a lot of kind of like luxury brands. And so they kind of niche themselves. There may be a lot of designers that we have seen and looked at that could execute on the design of some of this stuff, but these guys are really kind of like niching and positioning themselves to this audience and speaking to them in the way that they present their content and what they want to be known for. And so I think that's an important point too. Like early on as designers, you will often like just take any work that you can get, but then as you kind of like go through the motions and you start understanding like, hey, who are the clients and spaces that you really want to work in, you can start niching down and saying, hey, we are a design group that really focuses on, you know, bringing CPG brands to life or doing art directions.
To emphasize on that, like what you talk about attracts more things. So, you know, as many of you know, I'm the creative in residence at Van Group. We make like nice high-end websites, but like I make videos about a lot of the websites, but most of the websites I make the videos about are like cosmetics websites because we're doing the most interesting things. And lo and behold, we make a bunch of videos about the cosmetics websites. We have all these cosmetic clients, right? Like that's kind of what comes from that. Is that's what gets shared is by niche. And we're not a purely cosmetics firm, but you'll start to notice that the majority of work is basically what gets talked about, what gets showcased, like what gets shared around. And so if you are a firm that like is having creators talk about stuff, like thinking about that niche, where I'd say probably 70%, 5% of the videos I've made have been about that cosmetic space. And obviously the vast majority of big new clients are kind of coming from that is an interesting way to talk about it.
Agreed.
All right. So that was the end of the portfolios.
Hold on, I got a couple. I got one. Can I bring in one here real quick? Let's see.
Let's go.
All right. One stood out to me.
It's this designer Rorden Jodgers.
Rorden Jodgers looks like he specializes in Adobe Express. All right, Gabriel.
Where you can just ring a bell every time someone mentions an offline sponsor. Ding, 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 ding. It's just, and then just money just falls.
Gabriel Reyes Orday
GRO
is
he's ordained.
Indeed.
Really? Yo, if any are a minister, that kind of helps with the pitch, to be honest.
Of course.
Yeah, he has done a lot of work in that space, I think. However, there was one project that stuck out. Nope, he did a video illustration. Here we go. This one. Can you all see this?
I saw this. This was cool.
This is like really good in my opinion. It was illustrations for a larger project for a video.
But this does tie together where we want to go. But opposed to like an around the world history of Christian literature, it'd be more of like the marketing moments in time, you know? And it's
indeed.
It's Dieter Rams like blessing a AM radio, you know.
I like all the mixed media. Like I like how he's using black and white with color. There's color pops. There's, you know, grit. Of course, we have an Augusta statue there, so he got me with that. But
Israel and Italy, shalom. You know.
Indeed, this one was one of my favorites.
Jordan loves a good collage.
I do. In fact,
I respect that. Mixed media, you know.
Mixed media. I'm a real sucker for mixed media, to be honest. And then I wanted to highlight one more, a couple others. There's a young man who I met at I met him at a Hoka event, and he's doing interesting work. He is like a runner. He was a former college runner, I believe, and he's kind of carved out this niche where he's like working with brands. He's done a lot of Hoka stuff. He's worked with the Tin Man Elite, has done apparel for them. A lot of this kind of hand drawn lettering and whatnot. I don't actually think it's like really exactly like what we're looking for, but I wanted to highlight it's just a interesting niche. This young man was a fast runner, ran a lot, really loves running, and then took his hobby of drawing constantly and just started like doodling over all these things. And now he's being hired by every running brand. He built out
his own visual style. So you have to be like, look at the way brands look at merchandising, where they're like, hey, we need more. They need more units, right? It's like, oh, this style, we've seen this style floating around. We've seen these things. Cool. We can put 4 or 5 pieces with that look or feel on it. Is like a way people get hired. So if you do have an actual like, he has a drawn style that is like, you can even see through this portfolio. It gets like wide, then now it's like zoned in to all kind of looking much more similar. Again, it's not for us for this project necessarily, but it's found its own niche, which I think is kind of relatively important, especially as everyone can do good work now, right? Like the standard of your average designer is like so high compared to what it used to be.
Yeah, it's true. And I just think it reinforces your point, Oren, of like, finding the thing you're passionate about that you want to talk about, you're going to attract work like that. So lo and behold, if you're a cross-country runner who loves drawing on things and you get in that space, guess what? Every big running brand has cross-country work and every retailer has that. So you're going to get work like that. I met him at a race. He was a really dynamic young man.
So related, you've gone through your rebrand, you've gotten your first brand, you put all your assets together, you've got your merchandise, your packaging, you're starting to get some sales, things are moving, you're cranking up it there, looking at that 8 figures. But you've got to go to retail and you've got to improve your Amazon. How are you going to do it? And that's where our friends, our partners here at Platform come in, who have helped engineer those experiences for brands of all types, shapes, and sizes by making sure they have some of the best management, by knowing how to approach those key retail relationships, to build a strategy for longevity for emerging brands. And so if you are looking to get better Amazon support, build out your Walmart strategy, think about retail at a high level, and get that kind of real strategic partner that's going to be with you for years working through it, you can check out the Platform website in the description of this episode, wherever it is you are listening to it.
And actually, to like circle back to the very beginning of this, I do think a partner like Platform is one who helps you get very tactical about the placements that are allowed, the types of assets that you might need to connect as you move from a medium or mid-sized brand to a playing with the big dogs in those big spaces. So
as you start spending money on Walmart Connect to get people to click on your own brand in your own search, they're going to help you with the asset that you need for that. Yeah.
Exactly. No, for real.
Did you guys see that? It was going around this morning on Twitter, and it was like the Walmart website, and it's like a single line for like a yogurt ad, like a yogurt text ad, and then the search is for Pepsi, and it's a bunch of sponsored Pepsi posts, and it's just all Pepsi links, and it's like how much money is like Pepsi paying to compete with a yogurt ad to like that. It's just one of those where like navigating that stuff is an actual nightmare, even for the largest of brands. A good reminder to get a partner that can help you do that.
Totally. Yep. Thanks to Platform.
All right. So we do have some news this week. Some things happened. Jordan, Nike putting in an all cash offer for Skims and acquisition. What do you have to think?
Yeah. Well,
I'm joking. They don't have enough cash on hand.
The stock went up like 5%, just on this news, but fascinating.
Let's put that into perspective. The stock going up 5% is how much money?
I think it was like $4 billion or something.
So a collaboration announcement. This both speaks to the cultural power of Skims and the Kardashians and the sheer undying belief, and how bad a scenario Nike was in, that they can generate $4 billion out of thin air by announcing a co-brand.
It is absolutely wild.
But quick context on this. This is not a collaboration announcement. I've heard a lot of people talk about this. This is a NikeSKIMS collab. This is a new brand. This is a NikeSKIMS brand they are doing together, called, I think, NikeSKIMS, which is
shocking,
totally ridiculous from a naming perspective, but we'll get to there. But that is what this isn't like, hey, we're doing a collection. It's we're doing a brand, which to me says, Nike, we want to buy Skims. Skims being like, well, you actually don't have enough cash. And then being like, but we could do a brand together for half of that or whatever it is. And here we are. But Jordan, you probably have some inside baseball.
Yeah, first of all, I would say this started circling on the news outlet Puck this weekend. And it started to, say that this was a top secret project that had been working on for a long time. And that it's being announced in spring of 26. And shockingly, within 36 hours, we get a press release that this is coming out. This press release is very thrown together, in my opinion. Yeah. Nike would never do something like that. Like, if you see, this is all just like a brown background with text. If you were to compare this to other Nike press releases,
this is not a rollout. This is oh shit.
Here, yeah, this is oh crap. So here's an example of like the Shea rollout or the soccer rollout. You're going to get full-on imagery of the product. You're going to get...
how shady is that for those teams that work on those rollouts? So it's like, hey, guess what? When we put the brown graphic out without any thought, our market cap raised by $4 billion. But when we do all this work, no one gives a shit.
No one cares. I mean, you know, I wrote about this. I wrote about this in my newsletter that's going out actually 45 minutes ago. But it shows two things to me. One, you know, I worked in Nike Women's. I struggle with this one. I'm not going to wade too into this, but like, this is a Skims is a brand that's founded on, you know, female empowerment. Kim and the other brilliant woman who is a partner with her. What is it? Amanda Greeby something. Yes, thank you. Agreed. She and yet the whole brand is built on the male gaze, you know, from the outside looking in, and so it's like I don't know. What do you think?
I actually don't think that, but anyway, keep going.
You don't think so? Tell me why.
I think women. I don't think guys are like, hey, look at a Skims ad, or like look at the other. I think it's women looking at women in that way, and even the way they position it and how they use, and even Kim's in general. Kim's isn't like, oh, there's a bunch of likes on this from the male gaze. There's a bunch of likes on these from women all over the world. It's just my take.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The sort of Terry Richardson.
It is appropriately feminized position to women's sexuality, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean
that is just my take.
No, it's fair. It's fair, and it's like basically I was going to do a video on it today, like sort of asking the question, like but you know, having talked with a couple of the women who used to be on my team, I mean, they would agree with some of that stuff. But aside from that, to me, this shows like the power of personal brand. I heard a guy make a prediction. I think it was an All-In guy, and I thought like at the time, this was a couple of years ago, he said that, you know, personal brands will outweigh consumer brands by 2030. And like, this is an interesting example. Kim has 330 million Instagram followers to Nike's 300. So, you know, we're seeing these like founder-led brands, you know, Prime is the most popular energy drink right now. We have several others that we've talked about regularly. So this is just like a really powerful example of a personal brand.
It also Skims extended her brand. I actually think that the Kardashians overall, Kim especially, would be in a fraction of the power scenario that they are still in without Skims.
I mean, again, like I said, like I think Kim is a brilliant strategist. You know, Kim brings up a lot of things for people whenever you mention her, but I think they've done incredible. They're business moguls. They've done incredible stuff by expanding their brand and doing great business. So it's fascinating. You know, and I won't go too far, but like Nike, you know, wants to double down on the athlete and all this stuff. This is not something Nike would have done 5 years ago. To me, this is a little bit of a waving the white flag and saying we cannot win this millennial affluent woman that we are chasing in the Lululemon market, and we're just like waving the white flag and saying, okay, fine, we're going to partner with someone who can.
Ashwin, how do you feel about the name NikeSKIMS? Nike lowercase, Skims uppercase, as the name for a new brand that is a joint brand between Nike and Skims.
Painful, where you can just imagine the committees on both sides where neither one wants to budge from their name because they think their name has more brand equity. So then you just get the monster, which is let's just put them both together. But
I love it because it's got dumb genius aspect of it. Like, what if we just called it NikeSKIMS? But it's incredible. It's incredible.
You know,
I mean, the other aspect of this, I mean, that we, you know,
Hewlett Packard.
Kanye, I mean, is like, you know, noted, left Nike. I mean, he is completely canceled and gone off the deep end, of course, but it's just interesting those I don't know, tentacles that are still there.
And I do think this is going to be like a pivotal moment, right? Because I do think, like, I don't know, we can, all of our female listeners, if you have purchased Nike, anything outside of Nike shoes, even shoes, anything that's not a blazer, here in the last, I don't know, 36 months, we'd be curious to know. Like, I know at least, like, my wife doesn't have any more Nike stuff, right? It's all been replaced by Voiri and, you know, like, Inset and, like, all these Aloe. Like, this, basically, they have moved, this entire lifestyle has shifted. All workout gear, all casual gear, in something where that would have been Nike 10 years ago. It's just a natural buy. And so I do think this is like the beginning of a cultural shift, like inside like them being like, we have to get back this market and we'll see how effective it will be. And this is kind of the biggest name that they can do it with. But I also feel like this is going to spark, I don't look at, Skims obviously isn't like a cosmetics brand or anything like that, but I do think this is going to spark a bigger activewear conversation that like if I was Aloe, Set, any of these other kind of brands who are competing in some of these similar spaces, I would be really looking at like, what are these cultural moves that we can make? Like what is the, what does a massive cosmetics brand collab with like, what does Rhode times Aloe look like for a big deal, like cross category, like, hey, these are active related, like long lasting cosmetic products plus an entryway for the other brands to go into more lifestyle. Like I think we're going to see a kind of explosion of like big level marketing and collaboration plays tangential to this space because of this. It'll be some pretty significant ripple effects.
Yeah, I studied this a lot, during my time there. One of the fascinating things is you point out, Oren, on like product actually. So Nike has to sell at wholesale. They're not only DTC. Lululemon, Aloe, many of those other female-founded brands focused in athleisure are direct to consumer. So they can, if you really break that down to how you can spend on your product, you can spend double on your product. And so the product ends up just being nicer a lot of times to women in general. I always refer to this chart where like a lot of these men's brands founded in sport, in footwear, traditionally at the top, eventually want to win with women because they need to grow their business pie and continue to grow market share. And down in the bottom, these women's founded brands like Aloe, Lulu, Fabletics, Athleta, they start with women in apparel and they eventually need to win with men and get into the footwear game to get higher margins. And so it's just this fascinating crossing where everyone ends up now eventually blanding in the middle where you have like Lulu for men, you have Nike for women, you have, Adidas for women.
You see one of that stands out though, because like it became a thing. Like the Aloe hats for guys in LA is like a thing, and like a signaler that like you might have a girlfriend or like be ready to date. Lulu did a good job at least at one point with men's products and crossing over there. But on the top end of that, it's like Adidas is crushing it with women and has been for the last 18 months, right? And both with the Samba, with casual gear, with Sporty and Rich, with like a handful of these things where it feels like it has cultural resonance there in a way that Nike just hasn't had in an extremely long time.
Yes, it is a real challenge. I mean, I went deep down this rabbit hole and I could talk about it for hours, but Nike, they're winning with like female athletes, right? And that's what they try to double down on. At the core DNA of Nike is like, we serve athletes and we want to win in sport. So that Super Bowl ad is a great example of that. However, you got to challenge like your
Sabrina Carpenter, brother.
Yes, well, where's the real business? The business is when affluent women who go to yoga and don't really care about the WNBA, perhaps. Maybe they care about the W, but like they're not playing basketball. They're not running marathons
going
per
to
se.
Pilates.
Yes. And so, really Ty Haney, who founded Outdoor Voices, had just a really fascinating concept on this. She said she ran track in college and then would go for like just a simple jog on a Saturday morning before brunch and would wear this Nike stuff that felt like she was like a superhero, 3M taping and all this kind of crazy stuff. And she's like, I just want to wear something kind of comfy to go for a light jog in.
Cute. And a fucking value prop.
Which is like fundamentally against the DNA at Nike.
The 3M piping is a great note. Like, we're gonna need more 3M on that.
Yeah, we do. I mean, for guys, just add 3M and it's really sick. 3M or Gore-Tex. For the ladies, not so much. Anyway, what else? Anything else this week culturally?
That was the big one. It was kind of a slow news week overall. Obviously, some little things.
Yeah, Ashwin, what was on your radar? Anything from Ashwin's TikTok corner that came out?
Any copy crimes? Any marketing confessional?
Yeah. No copy crimes. No big marketing confessionals. This week. I think the big news kind of in the CPG space was there were two kind of like beverage acquisitions that were kind of like big and people were talking about. One was Alani Nu was bought by Celsius, massive energy drink brand. And then the other one was a sparkling water brand called Ora Bora, which was a little bit more boutique that sold to a private equity group. Alani Nu is obviously like a huge win in the space. And I think there was this Twitter thread that I don't have up now, but it's basically talking about the the tailwinds and the growth in the category and energy. You're probably seeing a lot of like new energy drinks to brand. I mean, we had Lucky Energy on the podcast last year, and that was newly launched. So there are new entrants getting into the space in every form factor, kind of carving out certain niches that they're going after. You know, first there was really just Monster, then there was Monster and Red Bull. They owned the market for a long time, maybe 5-hour energy in that small form factor. And then Celsius came along and is like, hey, we're gonna kind of get rid of all of that like super masculine, like hyper bro branding, and we're gonna make this like something that you could take to your 9-to-5 job and make it look somewhat professional. So they kind of expanded the market. They also had some pretty interesting positioning when they first came out. They said burns fat, like burns 100 calories with every can, which was like a crazy claim. So Alani Nu had a kind of similar approach, a better for you energy drink that was like positioned more towards women, and you kind of see that in their branding. So that's a really interesting space that I'm just kind of like watching. And then there was this Ouroboros sparkling water acquisition, and I think the story there was, hey, it is terribly hard to build a ready to drink canned beverage in these competitive categories if you're either not one of the big players or you're not super well capitalized.
What is the real question is, what does the Alani Nu acquisition mean for Kim Kardashian's Kim Aid subline of Alani? She's got 2 major hits this week.
Kim Aid. Wow. So Alani, so I'm not super versed in all this, but Alani Nu was like focused on the female, more of a female audience, like, and more feminine.
Yeah, although it's like, funny. I know dudes who are like Alex Garcia be nailing Alani Nui or whatever.
Really?
I can't pronounce it right, but like
Really?
it's like his drink, his energy drink of choice.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, if you look at Alani Nu, a lot of their early seeding, like if you go on TikTok, search Alani Nu, it's like a lot of their seeding was with women. A lot of just like, even their, you look at their can, it has a script font. They use really bright, saturated colors, kind of like not so different.
But it's almost more like tropical female leaning than it is like pure female leaning.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah,
So it's like less
kind of Miami Vice.
Like the Monster brand kind of like idea was, hey, we're going to win in convenience. We're going to have a large can, so we're going to kind of like win value-wise. And we're going to sell to guys who are like blue-collar workers. And like this is their drink for the day. Alani Nu is like, hey, we're going to win completely elsewhere with demographics that have kind of like not been
it's
paid
like
attention to.
Ghost for women without going as hard. But
Monster.
But this is, it shows you how, again, any category, you look at any single category and you go like, cool, there's the extreme option. I'm going to go the most caffeine, the most aggressive, whatever it is. There's a completely natural option. There is then there's the like conservative camo. Hey, we're going to put this like, then there is the, hey, we're actually just going to take like a more male category and make the nice female version of it. There's like a position to Gen Z. All of these are like you plot on a chart, you can get some working.
So true. You can find the natural. You can find
perfect compliment for Celsius, in my opinion, which is also the energy drink that like respectable adults end up drinking more than normal, and also I see far more with women than any other energy drink.
Yeah, I mean, in this breakdown that I saw, they were saying something like Celsius has 9% market share of the energy drink category, and with the acquisition of Alani Nu, it's now like 14%. But
it is. I love this. It's funny you do this because it's like one of my favorite things to do ever. Every time I'm in a meeting is like about a brand. Is like you pull up who talks about it, like how it was all like the women and it was like pink, and then like who talks about Celsius, where it's like everyone's like kind of like older. It's all way less aesthetic.
Yeah.
It's like far more male driven. It's a really interesting. It's like just pure TikTok search stereotype will tell you so much about what's actually happening with a brand.
Yep, it's so true. I know, and you can see how different those are if you are not watching the video.
So they got my guy Santa Cruz Medicinals up top, absolute SoCal legend.
Look at that. Yep. Oh wow, you can get the drink recipe.
Yeah, right. You can make your own. No, sorry, it's for a cocktail, right? Let's go.
Yeah. Wow.
Yes.
Bro, don't even get into dirty. Have you gone down dirty energy drink TikTok, where it's just people putting milk creamer in energy drinks? It's some legendary.
Oh, what?
Next big hit.
No way. Gross. No, I feel washed. I gave up energy drinks years ago. But I just drink good
dirty soda. Top 3, those just literally Alani Nu of the top there. People putting creamer in it, like right there. You have the top 3 dirty Alani Nu recipes.
Scroll
down.
With all this energy drink stuff, I mean, how much caffeine do you guys have in a given day?
I have a double espresso or an Americano in the morning, or cold brew midday, and then usually a single at night. So that's not that much.
Wow, my guy's ripping.
That's a single. Espresso is like an 80 And a cold
So-
brew is like 200, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, like a cup of coffee actually I think has around 200 milligram, but yeah.
Cup?
Espresso's a cup.
think
So
Yeah.
I thought a cup had 60.
Yeah,
Oh,
same.
really?
Oh,
Yeah.
Sorry.
60 or 80. Yeah.
Now, a cup and an espresso is like light, and then a cold brew is like way harder than people would think. But like, yeah,
Yes.
I drink a Voom like once a week, maybe. Like that's my energy drink consumption. Maybe once a month I'll have an energy drink.
What do
And
you,
it
Ash?
has to be
When
pretty rough shape.
I saw you started your day with a double shot.
I'm-
You did a day in the life video,
Yeah.
which we need to talk about.
If I make it at
There you
home,
go, Morgan.
which is not that often, but if I make it at home, it's a double shot. But when I go out, it's a triple shot, and it's just one coffee, triple shot, 180 milligrams. So when I see some of these drinks, it's like 250, 300 milligrams, and then I hear people who are like pounding a
Yeah.
couple a day. I'm like, are you
Yeah, bro,
on the
we
verge of
did-
death?
When I worked at the
Yes.
Surgeon, we were doing shoes for Celsius, and Celsius literally was like dropping off fridges of Celsius.
Cases, yeah.
And I would, yeah, and I'd be having like 2 a day and having like a heart palpitation driving back to Orange County.
Seriously.
Like,
No,
you know,
bro,
This
in my
becomes the next vape stuff. I feel like.
Yeah,
honestly,
but then, bro, like my bro James be drinking like multiple a day, real casual. It's
for
just,
real. I mean, in my early, so I now drink one large pour over. Maybe I'll drink one, 1.5 or 2 cups of coffee, but I'll do it before noon. When I was like in my early 30s, I told y'all last week that I was bartering with a coffee shop. So I would just sit there and be like drinking coffee all morning, and then I would have like an energy drink in the afternoon or a cold brew. And what I
Maybe
realized,
we'll do right now, not gonna lie.
I know. Well, I was having heart palpitations literally, and I had to like cut back and.
It's just a thing to do, and this is why I ended up being on the sparkling water train. Is like I'll go spend $5 on a Mountain Valley just so I don't drink another coffee, just so there's like a thing. This is why the beverage market is like it's a whole thing.
You need a beverage for every hour of the day.
Yo, also multi-bevy. I'm 3 bevy guy. Like I come to the meeting.
Multi-bevy,
I've got
same.
the thermos, I've got the Mountain Valley, and I've got the coffee. And then it's like with the
Are you?
laptop, people are like,
course.
really? I'm like, guys.
We're birds of a feather because people always joke with me. I have multiple beverages constantly. I've got to have a straight
guys got
water.
a green juice, a coffee,
Yep.
and a thermos. It's just like it is. Yeah, that's part of the game. I really looked at. I was thinking of doing my own version. Could you guys see the Fendi dropped like a drink holder, where it's like a
wow.
coffee holder with like 3 buckets on it? And I was like, oh man, like because rolling up into the meeting with like the Fendi holder with like 3
that's
beverages in
cool.
it, but it was like
like
only
that.
really sized for coffee cups. But like that may be if you see me like drop like a leather drink holder in the future, like a leather cup piece, like just know.
The Fendi drink holder. I actually, you're the top result there.
Hey, let's go. This is that SEO in the flesh. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, it is. Look at this.
Yeah, bro. They're just dropping coffee cup holders and shit. Let's go.
That is so cool.
And you got my clones. You know.
Yep, we love it. Well, fun times in the drink acquisition world. I mean, the only other thing I would say on Celsius is like I was with them on a photo shoot with up in Oregon one time, and they are going heavy in sports and particularly NIL. They have a great strategy on like signing top quarterbacks and are getting a lot. And dude, I was with the most efficient shoot crew I have ever seen. God, I would want to shout them out. I think it's like Wolf something, but they.
Wolf Blitzer, shout to God.
Yeah, Wolf Blitzer. No, it was like 2 dudes. Like one guy was basically running this like crazy rig with a gimbal and like flying and one direct. I mean, they got so much, and they were doing full television spots, which is, in great contrast to a big commercial shoot I'm going to on Monday, where we'll have a big crew.
Man, I have to. One of my to-do lists today is I got to go send this during, post shoot content plan breakdown.
Same. Got to go
I think
give
we're
the social
proprietary. That's what I was
deliverables and
thinking
cut
about. I was
downs.
gonna, like, I had a guru, like a mentory guru, talk to me the other day who's like, "Why aren't you branding?" He's like, "Don't you have like a proprietary process for like a campaign release?" I'm like, "Yeah, well, I do the same thing every time." And he's like, "That's not like the Orange CMG 74 method." I'm like, "God damn it!" It's like, of course it should be, but there's only so many hours in the day.
Free Notion at the link in the bio. Yeah.
We need a branded term for everything that we talk about. So by the 100th episode of this, it's completely indecipherable.
It's just acronyms.
Yeah.
It should
Yes.
actually be fire.
Well, the BrandFathers Bible will come out eventually on
BFB.
campaign, photo shoots, production, marketing jargon.
I do feel like we should pivot to info. Every day that I do more of these sponsored brand deals, I'm like, do I just pivot to info products? Just,
Yeah.
every day where I've like net 90 out for 38 grand, I'm like,
Yep.
just sell a course.
BrandFathers will be
sell that.
dropping a masterclass one day.
What would that be? It would just be Copy Crimes the masterclass, or it'd just be
Brother,
how
it
to
would be
barely hold
everything.
your life together while somehow becoming independently wealthy?
It would be everything.
No, I think, yeah, copy crimes and how to write good copy. We could do visuals. You could do short. I mean, it's there for us.
Possibilities are endless.
Yeah. Have you guys seen, the last thing I would say, this is on this note, but like there's private equity who's now like investing in creators and creator businesses,
Yes.
which is
Yeah,
happening.
something
And that was trending this week. And my management team reached out and were like, hey, if you could start a business, what would it be? And I was like, I don't know, like laid out 3 things. And then I was like, wait a second, is this around the private equity, style? Are you raising money to invest? And the top one for me is is a sports marketing MBA. But I think like we could do our own like BrandFathers MBA in, whatever.
Well, we may have some news breaking.
certification.
Yes.
We may have some news breaking on a future pod because your boy may be joining some private equity. So we'll.
Oh, look at that.
There we go.
It'll be a whole other level of conversation.
Indeed. Okay. All right, y'all. Well, thanks to everybody who submitted a portfolio design to us. We greatly appreciate it. We will share our winners. And
we're gonna hire
some
one of y'all.
others. Yeah, we will hire someone, and we'll break down into our discussions and regroups. Thanks again to Platform and to everybody who's tuning in. Subscribe to the podcast, rate it if you like it, and send it to somebody if you're enjoying this. We
If
greatly
you have any
appreciate it.
deep dirt, DM Ashwin.
Marketing confessionals, yes.
Marketing
I put up a call for that last night, and I know there's plenty out there. All right, thank you all. Have a great week.